So as we go through this today, we will have time, for some questions and answers. With just the two of us, we'll probably get to the majority of them near the end. We will most likely will be able to answer most of your questions as we go through the presentation, but feel free to drop questions in the chat, and we will answer them to the best of our ability. Aliza is phenomenal and has done an amazing job with preparing for this and getting our staff and students on board with Canvas. I just kind of say do Canvas, and Aliza actually makes Canvas happen for our district. So I would like to say that at the very beginning. So she does a phenomenal job with all the work that she does. And she works long, hard hours, much longer and harder than you guys can imagine. So that's all I'm going to say.
Same goes for Mr. Smith. Many hard hours, but we know your children are worth it, and we know how hard you work to support them. So your children are in my minds constantly, and we have, like I said, amazing families. So thank you.
Yes, we do. So for today, we're going to get you guys aware and more familiar with what Canvas does for your student and for you. So let's go ahead and jump in. So many of you have already set up an Observer account. There's a link shared in your emails that I send to you every Sunday, but also, Aliza, there's the link right there that it takes you to the directions on how to become a parent observer within Canvas. And if you go to literally any of the emails, she also just dropped it in the chat for you. You click on the link and it'll give you the directions on how to set up an Observer account. Now, to do an Observer account, you do have to have your students' information right there with you. So they have to get onto their Chromebook and give you a code from their account to set up your parent Observer account. Are we sharing this presentation at all, Aliza?
Yes, we will share the presentation and a video as well. So we can share the whole presentation too. Right now, I'm just dropping links as we go. Yep.
So you guys will be able to see the video instructions and the document. The document's been shared multiple times in email every Sunday evening for Pierce. And I know Mr. Rudy has shared the document several times as well with Thurston parents. The login page for Canvas is also right there in the presentation, and they are also being dropped in the chat as well. So once again, you have to have your student's account open and available to you from their Chromebook, and then you can get access to the parent observer side. So let's go ahead and jump in and see what that looks like. So when you get into Canvas, there are a number of things that you can see right there within Canvas as an observer. Now, you won't be able to do assignments for your student, but you can see all the things that your student has submitted in their courses, every course that they have. I believe you can even see last year's courses as an observer, which is, it's okay. But you do need to know exactly which courses your child is in currently. So you can see all of the courses, every assignment that's been put into Canvas, whether it's graded or for a specific grade, like quizzes, homework, any assignments that a teacher has put into Canvas. You can see the standards and the scores of those standards in Canvas and feedback. Some teachers put in like documented feedback where if they feel that a student can do a little bit better, or if there's just some things that they need to work on, the teacher will put in some feedback and the student can most times go back in, do some work on it, resubmit it, and show that they have done a little bit better with showing evidence of their learning. So if you are using a regular old computer or laptop, this is what it looks like from your on your screen from the desktop view. So on the left side, it has your account, the dashboard, all the courses, the calendar, your inbox, which is your email, History Studio. Some of that stuff you'll never look at, but it's there and it's available to you. And you know, as you click on those, more things pop up on the right-hand side. So this is what the one of the views is when you get to the home screen. So this page is for it says Miss Coops' Honors Language Arts 7th grade semester 1. I believe that was last year, so it's not exactly going to look like that this year, but it's very similar to this. The setup of it all is exactly the same. So this is just an idea of what it would look like. And for each class, all the same things are on that left side: home, announcements, modules, assignments, discussions. So home is this screen. Then every day, most likely a teacher will post announcements where a student can see what the class is going to be doing, or if a teacher is like out, a teacher will put in, "Hey, I'm not in school today, do this assignment," and they'll put a lot of times they'll put those things in announcements. For modules, those are the series of activities based on specific units. Assignments, it's pretty clear they're just assignments that are being done for the classes. And sometimes they do discussions, they put in quizzes. You can see grades for the specific class. There's the Zoom button, which is a Zoom link, a Google Drive. Some teachers have different things put in there. And then Nearpod, which are ways that teachers do activities, have students do activities within the class, and they can do activities right in Canvas, right through Nearpod. Was there anything else I needed to share right there, Miss?
Yeah, I'll just interject. Not all teachers show all of these things. We find that the more links we show, the less kids see, just because it's overwhelming. So minimally, every single teacher will have their home, their modules, their grades showing, along with probably an announcement. So you'll for sure see those things, because we only want to have links shown that we really need to use so the kids aren't confused. And then the last thing is on this right-hand side, this might be really helpful to our families. Anytime a teacher assigns assignment that's due, it's going to populate on this right-hand side where you see coming up. So if you're wondering how your child can quickly check what's due or what's coming up or what assignments they may need to do, this is a nice place to quickly glance for each one of the courses. All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Some of us do not like to use computers or desktops. Some of us like to use everything on our phones. So for us phone folks, I'm a phone person, but I have to carry a laptop with me everywhere I go. But I do a lot of my work on my phone as well. So for phone folks, there is a link where there is an app for Canvas for parents. I use it for my own children, and it works very well. So that is the home view on the left side. That's the home view. It shows all the classes that your student is in. And when you click on, I believe that's Miss Baydoun 7 and 8. So on the left side, it says P2 Spanish 7/8. That's actually on the right side. That's literally what you would see as soon as you hit that class. So it shows all the information for Miss Baydoun's class, the link for Zoom, her contact information, things to expect. That's the front page. And then that left one, it says grades. In that same, I'm sorry, yeah, it says grades. That's where you'd be able to go in and see just basic, most of the times formative assessments and regular assignments right in there. And we'll get deeper into what more of that looks like later on. But first, we want to talk about the 4-point scale. A lot of you, most of you are familiar with the 4-point scale at this point. We've been doing this this is year 4. Yeah, we're into year 4 of the 4-point scale. So that means every student in the secondary program has been a part of the 4-point scale. And we know that the elementaries do standards-based grading as well. So it's very similar to the elementaries. They've actually converted to the 4-point scale. So it should be very familiar to you, where at the highest point where the student really grasps the material best and has shown that they can prove everything. Right in the category says 4, meet standard. Student meets the standard by independently applying knowledge and skills to new tasks. So, and it says there is a pattern of accuracy and consistency, meaning they can do it pretty regularly, all the time, and most likely they can show it and they can teach it to other students, and they can get deeper knowledge and they can apply it to other things. And then the 3 is working towards the standard. The student is working towards meeting the standard by applying knowledge and skills to the new task. There are a few inaccuracies and or inconsistencies. So they can do it most of the time, and every once in a while they get stumped and they need to get some assistance or some help, either from the student that's receiving a 4 already or from the teacher, which is perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to have a 3. I'm a 3 in most areas, including this presentation. I'm a 3. So don't feel bad if your student is a 3. That means they have time to get to a 4, and there's nothing wrong with working towards the standard. A 2 is a novice or basic, where the student demonstrates evidence of basic knowledge and skill, meaning they know a little bit. The student does not apply knowledge and skill to new tasks. They're inaccurate or inconsistent. So they kind of have an understanding of it, but they're not really getting the deeper knowledge, and they're not able to apply it to new tasks, or can do it consistently at all. It's kind of like, back in the day, they were like the D and C students, where they did the work a little bit and they kind of understood it, but they couldn't really move to the next level because they really hadn't practiced enough, or they just didn't grasp the material well enough. So that's more or less what the novice or the basic student is. Now at the high school, there are no 1s for class of 2025, which is this year's freshman class. They receive 4, 3, 2, and then they receive no credit, which means they don't get credit for the class at all. And they will either have to retake the class, or they will have to prove that they should receive a 2, 3, or 4 later on, maybe the next semester, or that's something that the high school has to figure out. I'm not sure. I haven't been in that conversation, but I know that they do not receive credit. Sometimes they do some forms of credit recovery, and that's something that you should speak with that teacher and the counselor about, as far as getting credit for each specific class. At all other classes at the high school, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, they will receive a 1 or a 0 at this point, but they will be phasing out the 1 and 0 over the next 3 years, starting this year. So once again, at the middle school, we have all 5 numbers from 4 to 0. So we'll go on to the 1, which is insufficient evidence, where the student does not show progress towards meeting the standard. No progress at all. They might do a little bit of work, but they're not really proving that they understand it really at all. And then the 0 means no evidence at all, no understanding, or no demonstration, like work isn't being submitted at all. And it's just time for us to say, hey, what are we going to do? We need you to try something a little bit, so we know that you know something. And that's what no evidence is. We don't know what they know because they haven't proven anything, or they haven't submitted anything. So that's when a student receives a 0.
Thanks, Desmond.
Thank you.
I think I'll jump in here if that's okay, Desmond. So
yes.
We do give scores to standards. So when you look for those 4, 3, 2, 1s, or 0s at the middle school level, instead of seeing a score for an assignment, like all of their math problems, you may see a number of different scores, and they're connected to standards. And standards are just basically statements of learning. So what does this form mean, and to what learning is it attached to? Where is my child's learning strong, and where does my child learning have some needs? So it's meant to inform as much as possible, but in order to find those learning scores, you need to go to a specific spot within Canvas, which we'll show you in more detail in just a minute. And that is called the learning mastery portion of the grade book. In order to find the learning mastery scores, you do need to follow these steps on the left-hand side if you're using your phone or a tablet, like Mr. Smith talked about. And if you're using it on a regular desktop or a laptop, you would follow the steps on the right-hand side. And I'll drop these links for you in just a minute. These steps are also found in the Thurston Student Center and the Pierce Student Center. If you go to that course and then you click on families, Resources, all of these are there again, because we know that it's hard to remember everything with everything going on in terms of these steps. Your students know how to find these oftentimes too. So just so you know, to find scores on learning, you need to go to the learning mastery portion. So I'll just take a moment and I will drop those if they let me. Oops, sorry. Drop those links. I may have to come back and do this. Some links are easier to drop. So there is the video directions for the left-hand side. That one has the most steps. That would be the video I would watch if I had my phone. On the right-hand side, we don't have a video for that just because there are shorter series of steps that are a little bit easier to follow. Okay. All right. So I've already alluded to this. When you go into the grades portion of your child's account, you're going to see two tabs, and you see that the arrows are pointed to both tabs. One tab is called Assignments, and the other tab is called Learning Mastery. And they both give you different types of information about your child as a student. The first tab, Assignments, lets you know what assignments have and have not been submitted and whether or not they were late or missing. So you can see here in the Assignments tab, we have, and you can see underneath the status column, we have some assignments that will show up in red words as late, or if they're just entirely missing, they'll show up as missing. And what's nice is they're nice and big in red. So if you say to your child, take me to your Assignments tab, they're going to all be right there if they are missing any assignments. What's also really nice is it lists the exact assignment that's missing or late, and we'll show you in just a minute, but you can actually click on these titles of these assignments and it takes you directly to the assignment that they should have submitted. So it's very easy to see exactly what it is they're submitted, and it's easy for the child to go in and then try to attempt to submit it. We want students to keep trying to do the work because that's the important practice toward their learning. I do want to just point out a couple other brief things on this slide. You see two additional arrows. One is pointing to what look like speech bubbles. Those are any teacher comments that have been typed in for your child. Teachers take a lot of time. They write a lot of comments helping your child move forward with their learning. I would strongly encourage you and your child to look at those comments by clicking on that speech bubble. And also, if you look at the other icon, looks like a clipboard down here at my lowest arrow, that's a rubric. If you click on that, you can see the score that your child earned for that particular standard of learning or statement of learning for that assignment. So here you can see everything that's late, everything that's missing, and if there's been any teacher comments or any scores on learning with those rubrics, you can see them all in this one view. So it looks like my video link didn't work, Desmond. It doesn't look like this on my phone. Okay. Nope. This is what it looks like. Great question. Thank you. This is what it looks like on the desktop. Thank you, Desmond. It looks slightly different on your phone. And in a minute, we'll talk about how to reach out additional help so we can give you some one-on-one help if you're seeing something different. Sometimes the Android view is slightly different than the iPhone view. And so we can walk through those specific instances at the end of this presentation. I'm glad you guys are dropping in questions. Thank you. Oh, let me go back one slide. So I just want to point out one more thing. Notice it says out of, and you see all these zeros. Please don't panic. That just means that we don't give scores to assignments. We give scores to standards. So in a minute, I'll show you where the zeros do matter and you need to pay attention. If you see zeros in the assignments view, it just means that we do not give scores to assignments, and don't let it bother you. It does not mean your child received a score of 0. The other thing I want to point out is next to that late missing, you may see a series of X's and checks and dashes. Those also communicate something. If you see an X, it may mean that the assignment is incomplete and your child needs to go back and finish it. Again, don't worry about the 0. It does not mean anything in this particular view. If you see a dash, as you can see by my arrow at the very bottom of the screen rather, that means no submission yet. Now that doesn't mean it's necessarily late, because students can see assignments before they're due. It just means nothing has been submitted yet. But the nice thing is, as you can see over here on the left-hand side, when things are due are posted within this view as part of the due dates. So if you're wondering, was it supposed to be submitted, you'll see the due date right there. If you see a check mark, that means it's been checked off as having been completed by the teacher. So again, in this view, you can see all assignments that have been submitted, missing, late, and whether or not they've been complete or incomplete. And you can also see when they should have been due. So this is a great view for those of us trying to keep on top of students that maybe struggle to get things turned in on time, or just taking a quick glance to see how they're doing with that executive functioning. How are they doing with just getting work in? Because we know that's important practice. Okay. Desmond, did you want to add anything to these last 2 slides before I move on?
Nope, you're doing great.
Okay, thanks. All right, so these again are just, how was my child doing with turning things in, period. Now, again, the 0s don't mean anything here, so don't worry. I am going to skip the slide though and show you a different view and come back to this in just a minute. Where we really want you to be looking with your students, in addition to whether or not things have been turned in, is the second tab. The second tab is called Learning Mastery. And this is where you're going to see scores on learning. And when you click on this arrow, it'll expand and you'll see all the you'll see all the standards for that particular course. Courses have anywhere from 4 to 6 to 7 standards per semester. That's intentional. We want the number of standards to be significant but achievable. So these are significant statements of learning that are incredibly important to the course, but we want to keep the number doable. So you see that this standard is RL.1. That just happens to be the code or the name of that standard. You see below that, it says 18 alignments. That means 18 separate assignments have been attached to the standard. And then over here, you see 2.71 out of 4. That means right now that child has almost a 3, a 2.71, toward mastery of that standard. And if you remember that 4-point scale that Mr. Smith spoke of, that would mean that that child's in between novice and basic and almost to working toward the standard. Now, a couple things to consider. Mr. Smith mentioned that 3s are perfectly fine, and that is of course the case. We also want to remember the time of year. We wouldn't expect to see a lot of 3s and 4s in September and October. We're talking about large, rigorous statements of learning that take time to really master. They're not something a child can learn in a day. So if you're still seeing 2.71 or 2s in October, beginning of November, please don't panic. Obviously, we want to look at those things, but we would expect to start seeing 3s as we get into November, December, because we have all the way till the end of the semester to really work to that 3 or 4. Again, we want to be keeping an eye on it, but it's a progression over time. And again, these statements take time to master. So I just want to point that out. Anything you want to add here, Mr. Smith, before I go on?
No, I was gonna speak about the time of the grades as well. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
Thanks. Oh, let me go back. So the nice thing about this, and this is a video I'm going to play in just a second, is there's an arrow over here. If I click on that, it will expand and it will show all 18 assignments that are connected to that. And I'm going to go back one slide and exit out for just a minute. And you know what, Mr. Smith, it just occurred to me, I don't know if our sound's going to work here. We'll see, because I didn't click play sound. If it doesn't work, oops. Actually, let me open up a different tab. We have a video. When you open up that and it reveals all 18 assignments, a really nice feature about Canvas is that you can click on the link on any one of those assignments and it takes you directly to the assignment. You can see all your child's work, all their answers. You can see the teacher comments. So if you're wondering, why did my child get a 2 or why did my child get a 1 or a 3? All of their work is, or most of the work rather, is visible right there within the Canvas account. So we'll see if this video is going to work for us. If not, I can go into detail with my explanation.
The audio is not playing. Eliza?
Yep. Can you hear it?
No, it played for like a split second. That was the weirdest thing.
Okay, sorry guys. I had to worry about that. We've been having trouble with videos. I actually was just in another training and they were having the same trouble, so I apologize. So real quickly though, you click on that link, and I can just walk you through this actually. So you click on the title, and then when you click on that, it takes you actually into the assignment. And then you can see your child's answers, you can see the teacher's comments, and you can see the rubric score. So again, if you're looking for, well, why did my kid get this 4? You can click directly in and see that work that they did. So that's a really nice feature within Canvas. So if we weren't able to hear that in the video, that's basically what I said in the video. So sorry about that, guys. Let me move on here. And so because many of our standards do have code names, and oftentimes those codes from the state or national level, this year you're going to see a lot of codes that start with M's, and that has to do with our MyStar system. You're not only going to see those M outcome or standard scores within Canvas, but you're also going to see them in MyStar. If you haven't already noticed, there are some standards in your child's MyStar account. But if you want to see what the actual learning is, what your child should be able to do, understand, you can click on the outcomes tab in your child's account, and it gives you a sentence or two that explains exactly what the learning is, if you don't quite understand what that code is supposed to mean, okay? I've already talked about how attached to each standard are the assignments, and when you click on the assignment, you can go in and actually see the assignment and, more importantly, the work that your child did. Here's an example of where that child received a 1 for this particular assignment. But overall, with all the other 18 assignments, their score turns out to be a 2.71, pardon me. Okay, here's where the zeros do matter. So as Mr. Smith said, if we have a 0 on our 4-point scale, that means no evidence of learning. That can mean one of two things. Your child did not submit any work, and so we have no evidence. Or they submitted work, but we could not determine if any learning was achieved based on the answers that were given. Either there were so many wrong answers or the answers were incredibly confusing that we don't know what kind of feedback to give your child because we can't ascertain any evidence of learning. These zeros should be a red flag for you no matter what time of the year. So even in September, if you see some zeros, please click on it and take a closer look. Is it because your child was incredibly confused and needs to seek additional help? Or is it because they're simply not submitting work at all? Those are two very different problems that we want to make sure that we help families keep on top of. And I see a great question. Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. Thank you, about the GPA system. I'll answer it briefly and then I'll see if Mr. Smith, it actually translates perfectly. Our 4-point scale translate to the actual GPA that's used for colleges. So 4 is, so in college transcripts, they do not look at A's and B's and C's. They actually only look at 4, 3, 2, and then they reconfigure your child's GPA. For each college does that actually. So this actually is the cleanest translation in terms of GPA being that we do use a 4-point scale. There is no translating. Our 4-point is their 4-point. Desmond or Mr. Smith, did you want to speak to that at all?
That was exactly what I was going to say. So perfect.
Yeah. And I have 2 kids in college, and they thought they were getting all fancy with all this stuff. Mom, it's this letter grade. It doesn't matter. They're gonna rework your GPA for every single college, and every
Yeah.
single college has their own ways of doing it, whether they only calculate it based on core classes, whether whatnot. So your child really working towards that mastery in all of their classes starting at middle school is what's going to allow for those great habits. Mr. Smith talked about, starting with our freshmen, you have to get a 2 in order to achieve a credit. If I had a 6th grade child, I'd be saying, see that 0 and 1, if you are a freshman right now, you wouldn't, we need to talk about that and building those great habits now while they still have that safety net and the GPA doesn't follow them like it does in high school. So now's the time to have those conversations well before they're 9th graders. Okay. So if you see, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Mr. Smith.
Can you talk about how the grades will be, the report card grades will be in MyStar at the semester break?
Yep.
So if you're looking for report card grades at the middle school, we don't have report card grades until the semester. So we're going to encourage parents to look in Canvas, which is partly why we're doing this right now. Look in Canvas and you'll be able to see all your students' grades according to their standard, which is the most important thing, is where is your child according to each standard, which is like the great thing about standards-based grading, because they can do really well in a subject area but struggle in one specific area, because every class has multiple standards, so you can see how your child is doing. If there's 5 standards and they're struggling with one, then you can really focus on that one and help your student, or say, hey, you need to go talk to your teacher about this specific standard and see what the work you need to do to improve your grade. So you won't see anything on the report card until the semester, but up until we get to the semester, you can look in Canvas so you can see all their grades.
Yep. And come time at the end of the semester, if the technology gods shine on us and bless us, hopefully, you'll see the scores for every single standard, and then you'll also see an overall score for the course that will be determined by the teacher based on the most recent evidence of learning. And so as you look at all those different scores that Mr. Smith is speaking of, again, if you see a 2, a 3, and a 3 and a 4, hey, you're really strong in this area. What's been working with you? Hey, let's take a look at that too.
Yeah.
Those types of conversations. I just had a conversation with a high schooler that didn't understand why they were struggling. It came down to one standard. That was it. Hey, all you need to do is get some help here, and the entire class is going to be an easy pass for you. So it's really nice to pinpoint those areas of need. So it's not just, hey, I'm getting a D in math. Well, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Okay. Thanks, Mr. Smith. And I'm going to let Mr. Smith take this over because we have a lot of great things to recommend with regards to this.
All right. How can my child improve? So there's a video. I looked at the slide. I must have missed the video part. So there's a video that Elisa's going to put in the chat. Once again, all of this stuff will be available to you tomorrow once we have it all tied up in a bow. So there's a document and there's a video for you to take a look at on ways to see what the teacher feedback looks like. And then there is, last year we had office hours. We don't really have office hours much really this year, but teachers are available. Every teacher has a prep hour. At Pierce, it's every day a teacher has a prep period. At Thurston, it's every other day. Well, every other day, Tuesday through Friday. And then on Mondays, they have a prep every day, every Monday. It's weird. Sorry, they have the block schedule. So, but teachers are available. If you contact them, you call or email, they will all respond within 24 to 48 hours. And if you do not hear from them, let one of the principals know. We will make sure that you are connected, because that's, you can't just walk into the building and say, hey, how's my child doing? So, and then we have paper, which is something we're going to share a little bit more about with you in a little bit. Paper tutoring service. We finally got that going. It is an outstanding 24-hour, 7-day-a-week live tutoring service with people on the other end. And they do a number of things to help our students improve their learning and improve their grades. Thurston has a seminar every day at the beginning of their day, which is very important time from 7:45 till about, I think it's till about 8:05, somewhere around there.
Yep. They have home, sorry to interrupt, Mr. They have home base, and then at the end of the
Oh,
seminar.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all
Yep.
good. It's so confusing. And then that's where they have
Right.
48 minutes to
Right.
get some really nice additional help from teachers of their choosing, or sometimes teachers prioritize students that they've noticed needed help and they have them come. So you are
Right.
coming to me for seminar because I'm noticing you're struggling, or I'm noticing you need to redo or take this test, because we know that kids don't always come to those things on their own. And so that's a really nice thing. And then did you want to talk a little bit about homework clinic,
Sure.
Mr. Smith, at
Yep.
Pierce?
Yep. At Pierce, we have homework clinic twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. We have parents sign up on Sunday afternoon. Every Sunday afternoon, we have a sign up that goes out to the first about 25 students. We wish we could do more, but we gotta be mindful of everything. So homework clinic is available. We have at least one certified teacher in there. I was in there today, one certified teacher, and sometimes a parapro, or we'll get students that that are like, honors, ESP, or some students that just understand certain content areas really well, and they can help. But students are also able to use paper tutoring at that time as well.
Yep. And just one final note, in terms of contacting teachers, on the homepage of every single teacher's Canvas, they have best ways to reach me. So they'll have their email listed. They will have, so if you go to their Canvas homepage with your child, you can see the best way to reach every single teacher. That's both for students and family members, because we know how busy you are. But this is the thing that Mr. Smith is super excited about. So I'm going to let him take it away with this. So
paper tutoring. So the link is right there in I can't talk.
Chat.
It's
Yep.
in the
And I'll
chat
add it
now.
again. Yep.
I haven't said in the chat a lot this year, so I'm getting this Zoom lingo all over again. Also, parents, Mr. Rudy emailed the information about paper tutoring service, I believe last night around 7, and I sent a follow-up about paper and also talked about this webinar in the email that I sent to you guys, I believe at 5 o'clock this evening. So it's fresh, right in your inbox. Some of you got the link just for this webinar in that email. So take a look. But there are some great things about paper tutoring service. Multilingual tutors available for all of the areas that we have our classes. I don't know if they do German, but they do have English, Spanish, Mandarin, and French. I know we do have a German class at Thurston. But there also is plenty of homework help. A lot of times, just being honest, the majority of the time students use paper is for math classes and for writing assignments. So they are great at helping students with math problems. They don't just give the answer. They go through the steps with the student. We tried it out in a meeting once, where we were just a dummy student, not literally a dummy student, but like a fake student. We put in a math problem, and the person on the other end was starting to help us. We were like, can you just give us the answer? And he wouldn't just give us the answer. He made us walk through the steps, walk through the process, and then we were able to come up with the proper way of coming up with the solution. So they really do know what they're doing, and they do help the student to think about what the processes are, and to think about the things that they learned, think about the notes that they've taken. So it really is great with that. They're also able to submit writing assignments, things like that, and they will help a student walk through the editing and the proofreading process. They'll give some feedback, and the student is able to, do some rewrite, and they're able to help just be a good set of eyes before they submit assignments for their classes. It says from essays to lab reports, students can upload any written work along with their teacher's instructions. So then there's study support, no limit to how or what students can learn with paper. They can prepare for upcoming tests, get tips on a grasp concepts effectively, and even help with elective subjects. So it's not just for core subject areas, it's for all the subject areas that we have. It also helps with, hold on, y'all, it's free, right? It's free. So you do not have to send your child off to, the university, Wayne State's campus to get some calc help. No, you can have your child go right into paper tutoring service, log in with their South Redford student account, get in there, put their information in, find out what the problem is, and the person on the other end is willing to help them because they are already getting paid by the school district. So you do not have to shell out $30 to $50 just for someone to help your child with one problem.
Thanks, Mr. Smith. And we have a great question in the chat where someone says, how can the kids get individualized help in homework clinic? I brought my son back up today, but he says there is not really individual help. So, we would love to get individualized help at homework clinic, but as Mr. Smith said, oftentimes it's a single certified teacher with a parapro. So running around and answering all those math questions is, we would love to do that. But if a child's at homework clinic and they can log into paper and at least get started, then the teacher can come up or vice versa. So we want children to not only take advantage of the adult help, but we also want them to learn how to use resources to help themselves. Because at the end of the day, that's really the most empowering thing that we can do. So yes, we would love to get more people in homework clinic, but as we continue, I know Mr. Smith is working really hard on that, but even in a class of 30, we can't run to every single kid, right, and give them the help that second that they need. We want to teach them how to utilize resources so they can best help themselves. Great question. Mr. Smith, did you want to add on to anything for that?
Yes. If a student needed help in homework clinic, all they had to do was say something. Yeah. I was sitting there working on stuff, talking to students. But if a student doesn't say I need help with anything, then I don't know.
And I'm really glad you said that, Mr. Smith, because that kind of goes back to our last slide, which is open communication is so important. I mean, I've had my own children come home and say, I don't, and then let's take a look, and you start digging a little deeper. Wait a minute, is that missing? Maybe you need to email your teacher. And sometimes there was genuine confusion. Sometimes it was, oh, I think I forgot to submit that, that kind of thing. But really teaching your child how to advocate themselves, how to go ask the teacher, how to send their own emails with your guidance. And of course, if you want to email, that's of course strongly encouraged. But again, our job is to empower them so they can advocate for themselves. Because at the end of the day, we won't be around all the time as much as we would like to. So I just want to mention that open communication is critical. We have amazing teachers that are tripping over themselves, wanting to be available. But to Mr. Smith's point, if they don't ask us, we can't know what they need either. So please encourage your child to reach out for help. We want to be there for them. Mr. Smith, did you want to speak to anything else before I share the paper thing? Okay. So we do have one last thing. If any of you have iPhones or phones with you right now and you have a QR scanner, you can scan the screen right now and you can actually go right into paper and your child can log in. And of course, I will put in the chat the login code as well. I would have loved this as a parent because I paid some big bucks for pre-calculus and calculus tutoring. And quick sidebar, I was walking down the street the other day talking to a neighbor, and the spouse leaned out the door, get in here, your child needs math help. And you could just see the parent was frazzled. This is an effort to reduce your stress levels, folks. We know the wars that you might be having trying to help your child with homework. We know that that's exhausting on top of everything else you're doing. So instead of that, hey, log into paper, that kind of thing, because we know your plates are very full. Anything else in addition, Mr. Smith, before we take questions from our families?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, great. We had great questions, by the way. Thank you. So if you raise your hand, and you could raise your hand by going to the bottom of your screen, that allows us to allow you to talk either verbally, or we invite you to drop your questions in the chat. I'm also going to take the entire presentation and I'm going to drop that in the chat. as Mr. Smith promised, and then we will make sure that the presentation, the video, and anything else that may be supportive tonight's information is emailed out via the principal's weekly communication. I know Mr. Smith and Mr. Rudy are both really good about getting out those communications. So any questions from our folks tonight?
They probably type.
Yes, probably. The fact that you're even on a Zoom after a full day of work speaks to why our families are so amazing.
Exactly.
My name is Eliza Nagelhout. I'm going to put my email address in the Zoom. I am happy to meet with families if you're having a hard time becoming an observer. We also have Tanya Hubbard and Patty Denton, who are amazing media specialists and instructional tech coaches. We're so lucky to have a media specialist now at both schools. We're not sharing people. Yeah, I can share the login again. Sorry about that. I thought I did, but who knows tonight. So you can reach out to me. My email's there, or if you reach out to Smith, and I can meet with you directly, or we can get you to people. Also, if anybody just needs someone to be there, I know it's hard via Zoom. Mr. Smith, we can probably arrange some times to say, hey, come up after school. Someone can meet with you. I've done that with families. Like, let me see your phone. Let me help you with that. Because we know it's hard oftentimes in this kind of environment. So we are here and we want to support you and you supporting your students. So let me drop that paper link one more time. And then Mr. Smith, do you have any other comments?
Don't. I was hoping we had some questions. But I'm grateful to all you guys, all you parents that are here today. Hopefully the presentation made some sense. I know it was a lot. Oftentimes with things like this, you see all these slides, you're like, I don't even know where to start. Just jump in there, just play around. It's like, when you get a new phone, you just sit, you just stop everything, you just kind of play around and figure it out. That's kind of like one of those things you have to do with Canvas. You just kind of got to stop one day and just start looking around, and all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, that's where the grades are. And that's literally how you will find it. But we have instructions, we have people that can help you. Every teacher can help you find how to get to grades and learning mastery. We'll have the video, we'll put the video in the email that we share out tomorrow, most likely, so you can find it a little bit easier. Doing stuff on the phone, it's very convenient, but oftentimes the phone is just not as convenient with Canvas, unfortunately. So every once in a while you may have to get onto a desktop to see what's really going on with your child's grades.
Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to let Mr. Smith speak to that. Before you speak to parent volunteers, though, in regards to what Mr. Smith just said, really, honestly, the easiest thing to do is to have your child take out their Chromebook, have them log in to Canvas, and then just sit there and say, tell me about your day. Let's take a look. Can you click on each one of your classes? And I heard about this thing called grades. Where's learning mastery? And just, tell me more about that. Hey, I noticed that. Tell me, and then it's a conversation with your child versus you being frustrated trying to look at something by yourself on your phone. Because at the end of the day, they're going to know. And if they don't know, then they need to know and ask their teacher for additional information. So that would be what I would encourage you to do.